Video we're going to talk about submitting homework, but I'm going to go through several steps before just so that to clarify some issues that we've been having or that some students have been confused about, so we thought we'd make this video. The first thing we're going to do is get your repository. So you guys should have hopefully done this by now, but just to review and just to basically start from scratch. And then I'm going to show you guys how to get your new homework branch. This is sort of covered in the workflow, but I wanted to show directly because some people have been having trouble with that. And then also switching between branches, as well as then I'm going to just sort of edit the homework really quickly, add commit push, and then I'm going to go on GitHub and actually go through the steps just to make sure that when you finally send your submission that we have the right version and you can verify that you're up to date there. So and I want to talk a bit about late homework because you guys do have some added flexibility in terms of late days and things like that. So I want to go through the details in terms of how we're going to look at things on GitHub. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get the repository. So here, and you can fast forward if you've done this before, so you don't have to worry. So the first thing we're going to do is actually get the repository. And so if you go into your CS-109 students organization and you'll find a username -2015 homework there. You can then go to the SSH. Actually, sometimes it's by default on HTTP, and you can switch it to SSH. We've set up SSH keys before, so if you haven't done that yet, go to the homework 0. They have instructions there on how to set up your SSH keys. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do is go to the terminal. And so here I'm in my default directory, and you'll see there I made a folder called CS-109. So let me switch into it. This folder I'm going to put all of my CS-109 stuff in there. Currently I just made it, so there's nothing in there. So if I go back to here, I copied it, so I just hit Control-C when it's highlighted. And so what I'm going to do is git clone. So this will grab the repository and completely make a local copy in my directory here. So if I look now, there's a new directory called the same as my old directory. Okay, so the first thing I want to do now is cd into it. So there were some issues with this, but first you go into the directory, and now you can access all the git stuff within the directory. So one thing that I would recommend, especially if you're starting up, use git status like crazy. So there's this thing called git status, and it tells you which branch you're on, and we'll go through branches in a bit. And it tells you which branch you're tracking. We're tracking origin master, and there's nothing to commit, so it just sort of is a nice little update there for you. Okay, so if you noticed, we're on the master branch. If you go back to your directory here, there are 3 branches, and so one thing to like easily quickly check here is just to do a git branch, and this will print for you all the branches that are associated with this repository. And so you see that there is a master branch, and if it doesn't say remote / it just says master. This means that it's the branch that is on your local directory. And then there's also a bunch of remote branches. There's the homework 0 branch, homework 1, the master branch. You notice that I didn't point to this because this is it's a bit more complicated, but essentially it says which one is the default one, sort of something like that. So you can ignore that for now. So we can see that we have the master branch, but we don't have the homework 0 or homework 1 branch. So this was, this is basically starting from scratch. And so what you want to do now is you want to go through this for each homework loop for homework 1. And how you do that is you say git fetch, then you say origin homework 1. So right now we're fetching origin homework 1, and so we fetched it now. So the next thing we're going to want to do, so if we go to git branch again, it essentially, we haven't switched over to the new branch, so here's how we're going to do that. So we say git checkout homework 1 from origin. Homework 1. Oops. Oh, right. Sorry about that. This is a B. Okay, so if we do git branch again, so this prints out all the branches that are available to us. So you see now there's a new branch called homework 1, and there's also the old master. And this says that the homework 1 branch, the local homework 1 branch, is tracking the origin homework 1. So that's great. If we do ls, so these are the new things that are in the directory. You see there's a homework 1 here and the homework 1 original. There's a new readme. So one thing that I wanted to show you guys, because I think sort of helps clarify what's going on, is if we actually look in the where you have the directory here. If I switch go into the Finder, find the directory, so here it is. So here's now my homework 1 stuff, but you might stop and think like, oh, well, where's my master stuff? And so the way that essentially works is if I say, if I check out the master branch, what this does is it takes all my branch master branch stuff and it drops it into this this Finder, and that's essentially it becomes really important later on, especially when you're working on multiple branches, to be on the correct branch. And this is a really good way to sort of check which branch you're in. But since we're going to work on homework 1, we're going to switch to the homework 1 branch, and you see how all the data files switched here. So it's actually quite simple. It's not too complicated. Turns out there's a hidden folder called .git, and the .git has all this stuff in it, and it has all the versions of anything that you've ever edited and added, committed. So it's actually pretty cool. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is, so we got the new homework, we added the repository, I showed you how to switch between branches, which is just git checkout, and then you put the branch name that you want to switch to. And remember, there was a git branch minus avv. Minus a means print out all the branches, including the remote branches, as well as v means verbose. So it just sort of prints as much information as it can. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is just sort of edit some homework, so I can show you guys how the workflow will look from this sort of on this end. So the one that you're going to probably work on is actually this IPython notebook, right? Because that's how we set things up. So I'm going to start IPython notebook, and so this opens up this this little Finder type thing here, and so I'm going to actually go into homework 1, and I'm going to edit it. You see, previously I did this just for myself, and I saw that I edited it just a few hours ago. So I'm going to change that to 9:53, and then I'm also going to scroll all the way down, and then I'm going to just sort of add something else just to make some more edits here. This homework is very long. Okay, so now I've edited my homework. Like, let's say I'm done for the day. I don't want to work on this homework anymore because I have other stuff to do. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to shut down the kernel. You don't actually have to do this. I just like doing it because I don't like stray kernels floating around. So I'm closing everything here, and I'm going to close this by hitting Control-C. And so now I shut down everything. I can look here. Everything's still the same. I didn't add any new files or anything. But if I do git status tracked that I actually made some changes to homework 1. So so now that I've made changes, what we're going to do is go through the add commit push loop, and that should be sort of every day at the end of your day, or I don't know. Sometimes when I'm working on something, my command save is a tick now, so I think this is becoming much more like that. So if every half hour you just want to add commit push, that would be totally fine. So in order to do that, we're going to just git add. And I get in the habit, and I think it's a good idea, of adding just the things that you've edited that you want to modify, because we're going to add files and things that you don't necessarily want to upload to the web. So, so I've added it now, and if I look at the status, it's changed from red to green. And so you see that it's now, the changes have been, there are now changes to be committed. So before I said changes not staged for commit, now they're staged. And then, so all we need to do now is to commit them. Well, there's a few more steps, but just the next one is to commit. So you say git commit -a, and then instead of, so if you just do this, it actually opens up a Vim, which if you've never worked with Vim before, it can be a bit confusing. So instead, what I would recommend is for you to use the message flag. And so the message flag works like this. After the A, you put an M, and then you put your message in between quotes here. So this can be, this is my edit for September 20 at about 10 p.m. Okay, so, and I like to leave very detailed messages because a lot of times I want to revert some changes, and I want to know exactly what I did in that commit. And in this case, it sort of tells you that there were 17 insertions and 1 deletion. And so that's the commit. And if we go to git status again, it says that that there's nothing to commit, which is good because we just committed. But it also says that your branch is ahead of the origin by 1 commit. And so what this means is that your local repository is has more changes than in the upstream repository. So next we're going to push the changes. So you just say git push. And so now it says that we have pushed, and it says to which repository. So this is a really important part because we've noticed that some students have forked their repositories, which you weren't supposed to do for homeworks, but you were supposed to do for labs. So just make sure that you're pushing to the correct repository, which is CS-109 students here. And so now that's basically it in terms of the add commit push cycle. And now I want to talk about actually how do you check that you submitted your homework and that we're going to read the right version. And so the way that you do that is if you go to your branch, the homework 1 branch, you can see, actually, if you go to commits here, that this is the latest commit that you did. So this is how you can check which version you last committed, and actually even much more useful is if you switch to the homework 1 branch, and you go to this homework file, you'll see that the last change is here, and here's the tag that I just made right now. And if you actually open up the IPython notebook, GitHub has a really nice user interface, and it actually shows you the entire IPython notebook, so you'll be able to see your homework here and verify that the latest one is the one that we will be reading, the latest commit that you made. So yeah, it says here that it's this edit was the one that I just made, and if I look all the way to the bottom, of course this homework is very long. So that's how you check what is the latest. That's how you check which homework we're going to see. And then just really quickly on late homeworks, you're going to have 2 extra days per homework. So that means that on Saturday night, we're going to grab all the latest commits and just grade the latest commit. So what that means is that if you don't want to use any late days, don't commit or push after Thursday, because if you commit or push, that means that you've made changes. So we're going to have to take off 1 late day, and then if you keep working on it, so it's sort of an indication that you've kept working on it. So do be very careful not to push to the branch that we're grading. If you get started on the next homework, that's even better, but just make sure not to push to the Homework 1 branch after it's due. Okay, so that's everything. If you have any questions, do ask your TAs. They're all very experienced in Git now. And yeah,